everybody to the Maiden Myth.
Welcome.
And so we are discussing episode 5.
Episode 5.
And that was addressing the myth, loneliness, a single person's, not disease. Why am I thinking that?
Not a disease.
Yeah, loneliness, the myth of single people.
Loneliness is not a disease.
It is not. As a matter of fact, that's what we learned. It is not a disease.
Right.
It is very natural.
It's very natural.
Between people who are married, people who are single, anybody can deal with loneliness.
Absolutely.
And it's so interesting because a lot of times, it's like I know that, but there have been moments in my life where I'm like, this is because I'm single. And it's not that at all.
It's not that at all. It's not that at all.
Man, that's crazy. So it's like, just address it because it's not going away and it's natural and all the things.
Yeah, man.
What was your favorite?
We go through singleness and loneliness in almost every stage of our lives.
That's so true.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But from the episode when Sarah was talking about communicating with people and how I really felt like, wow, I love that, because a lot of time when we think about intimacy with God, we think about us and God. 1, 2, that's it. And I love how she was bringing in how God is in people and how God moves through people, and your communication with people allows you to be more intimate with God.
Let me tell you how that just jacked me up. So a while ago, I've always had, it's been difficult for me to receive from people. Very difficult for me to receive, right?
Ooh.
Exactly. And so I remember once my mom being like, I want to give you a certain amount of money, right? I'm like, no. And I would often say that whenever they're like, oh, we want to just bless you. I'm like, no, you don't have to do that. Especially because in my mind, I want to be able to take care of my parents. Y'all have done y'all job. Now I'm older. Let me take care of you. We've had this discussion before.
Yes, we have.
And so I remember just being like, Mom, I don't want you to give me anything. I'm good. I'm fine. She went off on me. She was like, how do you think God is going to bless you? How do you think God is going to give you? Who do you think he's going to use? People. And so you're going to tell. When I tell you that got me all the way together, I realized God is blessing me and trying to bless me, but I'm literally saying no to people. I'm saying, no, I don't need that. Or even going as far as asking for help. Yeah. That type of vulnerability. It's like recognizing God has empowered some people to help you in times of need. Strengthening, you know what I mean?
Yes. I think it opens up your mind to expanding how you think about how God moves. And how he's helping you. And, a lot of times we have a certain image of that. And it's, I'm being spoken to directly. And he's going to give me a thought or me a mind, a memory or something that I'm going to think about that I'm going to say, God is speaking to me. Versus somebody else coming to you
Very
and saying,
practical.
Yes.
You need $100.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. I have a friend who was trying to hook this girl up. And she was like, with a guy, of course. And she's like, the Lord told me I'm going to know when my husband has come to me. And she found a perfect match for this girl. She's like, all you got to do is go out with this guy. She was like, that's not the way the Lord told me I was going to meet him. Sis is still single. And I'm like, that was because she's looking for him to come in some mystical way when it's like, it makes me very practically.
Yes.
Or what's that story, that proverb where, not even a proverb, but there's some story where someone is on a boat and they're like,
I was going to bring that up.
April just rose. She knew what we were talking about.
Yes, the drowning man.
Yes.
And a boat comes and he says, I'm good, God will save me. And then somebody comes with a rope and
Wasn't
he's
it
like,
that?
I'm good, God will save me.
Yeah,
and then another guy comes and each time he's rejecting it.
Yes.
And then he drowns and dies and goes to heaven.
Why did
and
you
say, God, will you save me? He said, well, I sent you a boat. I sent you 3 different things that you rejected. I can think of, it's one thing that popped into my head, and this might not be appropriate for like the godly conversation.
Do it.
But I was turning 30.
Okay.
And I went to Atlantic City. And I was like, I'm not a gambler like that, but I was like, I'm gonna
You said you're not a gambler like that?
I'm not a gambler like that.
We just went to Vegas and I saw your eyes. I saw you.
Listen, I'm only gonna lose a certain amount of money, and it's probably about $20.
That is true.
So I go to this table. I don't even know the name of this game, but it's the one where you put the dice on a certain number. And there was the lady who was like manning the table. She's like, you need to play your age. Oh. And I'm like, she's aggressive. I'm not listening to her. And I'm rejecting her because she's telling me what to do.
And the approach was
yes. And I'm like, no, I'm going to think of a number that I think is lucky, and I'm going to put it on that. Huh. Is that your age? I'm telling you need to play your age. And I'm like, so I put it on something that wasn't my age. The dice roll, 30 comes up. And I'm like, no, that was my age. And I told you should have played your age. But it's like, look.
Was it an old black woman?
Yes,
it
was an old black woman. And I'm like, I don't know why I fought her like that.
It don't matter how they say it. You gotta be obedient. Hear ye.
It's so true. Girl. But it's like, you don't know what messenger God is going to send to you. You don't know what package that's going to come in. You have to stay open. And
see, what did she say? The imago Dei in everyone, the image of God, and find it, look for it. Because you see somebody on the street, even you can see a homeless person and be like, you don't know what message that person may have. You don't know the person's situation. Anybody can be used.
That's true. Because even somebody that don't like you, even your enemies can be used for your benefit.
Have been.
Oh, yes.
Have been used for my benefit. So it's funny you should say that because, of course, I brought this book up. I wanted to talk about this. There was a time in my life where I was like really just feeling distant from God. Like just feeling like I wasn't hearing the way I wanted to hear or I'd heard in the past. It was actually when I first moved to LA. I feel like so many people have this story where you're like, this good career.
Listen.
Father, you told me to move here. And
oh my goodness, yes.
It was rough.
Yes.
That was probably the roughest time in my life, career-wise, right? Mm-hmm. And so a friend of mine, Christina, you met Christina?
Yeah.
Yes. So she told me, she invited me to go to this woman's home. This woman named Monica. I think her last name is Palmer, I think. I can't remember now. But she invited me to her home on a Saturday. And she's like, we're having prayer. And it's normal for some people, but this is just something that I did not do. Go to people's homes to pray during the daytime, right? Mm-hmm. And it was a different type of prayer. She's like, just come for the experience and see what it is. And so it was the Immanuel approach.
Okay.
And this particular practicum, the Immanual Practicum, it really is about using all of your senses, but specifically your sight to see God in every situation of your life.
Okay.
And so you start off just basically appreciating God, which they say is different than Thanksgiving. So when you're thanking someone, it's more so you're thanking them for what they're doing.
Okay.
Appreciation is about who they are.
Okay.
Okay. It's like, I appreciate you for being so loving and kind to me. Okay. I appreciate you for being this, right? At least that's how they explained it. It's way more detailed in the book. Okay. But they focused on that. And then they ask you, do you see Jesus in this? Ask the Holy Spirit for a memory where you were rejoicing in the presence of God or where you had a joyful connection with Christ. Okay. And so, of course, you're using your imagination in this because they believe that the imagination should be used or can be used in a holy way. A lot of times in churches, we're like, watch the imagination. You don't want to get in trouble. But they're like, well, this is a gift from God. Use your imagination to see the Lord in every situation. And so that was a trip for me.
Okay.
Because I'm cool with hearing from God. I'm even cool with the idea of tasting the goodness of the Lord. You know, you taste a real good Thanksgiving meal. You're like, oh, the Lord is in this. The Lord is in this macaroni and cheese. Okay, I taste Him. Okay, and even like smelling the sweet fragrance of God. All of those things, they don't scare us too much. They don't scare me. Even the touch of the Lord, I can feel Him. You know, you shake in service, and you feel it shaking in your belly. It's like all of those senses I'm comfortable with because I've been practicing them and I've been taught to use them and they've been commonplace. But when you talk about seeing God, and specifically, because they get very specific, do you see His hands? Do you see His feet? What is His hair? Does He have a beard? Yes. And so,
okay,
what are you thinking? Because I see your face. I see you making a face right now. No, because
I'm wondering. So are you creating this image? Because if you're being guided to look for a hand, what if there's not a hand in your memory?
So if there's no hand in your memory, they say don't push it. Because sometimes it's not even a person. It can be an animal. Sometimes it can be like Moses saw a burning bush. It could be a bush. It can be a thing.
Okay.
It could be so there are different places in Scripture where in the Old Testament, New Testament, post-ascension, they talk about people who saw God. And it's all in the book. They're very specific about what they saw, how they saw God.
Okay.
And they basically build their case off of that. Like, we are still to see God. And they talk about scriptures that remind us we are to still see God. They say the world won't see me. Jesus said that. The world won't see me, but you will see me.
Okay.
And they won't see me because they don't know me, but you know me. Okay. So look for me. You know? And so basically they're like, are you looking for Him in your situations in your life? Are you looking for Him right now? He's here. He said He'll never leave you nor forsake you. The point is, going through that, it's not really a program, but just doing that prayer, we did it every single week, once a week. And I did that
all together or like one at a time?
So it would be like 4 of us, 4 girls, sometimes 5 women in this woman's living room, Monica's living room. And she would start us off. She would say, okay, let's do a prayer. There's this like prayer that they write out so this prayer is actually scripted because they're like, this is what we want the leader. There's always a coach, right? There's someone who is kind of like because it's basically a therapy session.
Okay.
It's basically a therapy session.
Okay.
I should have started with that.
Okay.
It's basically therapy.
It's like group therapy.
It's not group therapy. We approached it that way, but it's intended to be one-on-one.
Oh.
It's intended to be one-on-one, but it's okay to do it with the group. But let me tell you why you can only go so far with the group, because you're really supposed to go into traumatic work. Like you're supposed to find, so the point is to open your relational circuits, okay, with gratitude, appreciation for God, recognize Him in your good times, in a good memory, okay? Notice Him, see Him. That's what we practice. But then one-on-one, then you say to Christ, what do you want me to know? It is amazing what you hear and what you see. Like, it was this is very New Age Christianity, and it would trip me out a bit. But I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it was amazing the things that I didn't even know I needed healing with in relationships that I thought were pretty strong. And then I was reminded of an incident that I interpreted wrong. Yes, and it shifted the way I saw myself.
Wow.
It was...
Well, this is very interesting.
A part of me wants to say, but I'm like, I'm not totally prepared. I don't know if I want to go. I may come back to that.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. you know, it's a sensitive world.
Yeah, right. But I guess I'm saying all of that to say that was a special time because I went from not even knowing, just being so lost and feeling so disconnected with God, to seeing Him, fully seeing Him in the car with me, seeing Him in my house, and practicing that all the time. So I got to a place where I did not feel alone, let alone lonely. It just slowly, it was a slow healing. And then I was getting stronger because my identity was also being formed and cleaned. Like the things that I thought about myself, I'm like, whoa, I totally interpreted that wrong. It's really, really, really good work. Now, I don't necessarily think I've had major traumatic things happen to me.
Okay.
But I've seen people, because I started to actually coach myself. I was so moved by the work. I'm like, okay, I want to coach. I want to be on the other side where I'm actually, guiding people through this prayer. And people have had some traumatic things happen to them. And I've seen healing happening through sessions. It was amazing.
So do you feel like this would qualify as intimacy with God?
1000%. Because I'm literally asking Christ in the memory work, in my imagination, God, what do you want me to know about me? What do you want me to know about the situation? What do you want me to know about this person? I'm having a conversation and I see who I'm talking to. My Jesus was black. So, and at first I was like, it's amazing because I have these images of Christ.
Oh, now that's interesting.
It is interesting, right?
That's it, because I was thinking that you weren't seeing something specific, but you're more so kind of, I don't know what I was thinking. My brain was just kind of thinking it was like you're seeing a memory, and whatever was actually there in that memory, you're kind of like seeing, oh, God was present here in this animal, because I remember stopping and seeing this animal and it made me feel some kind of way. But you're saying
no. In addition to that, so there, you can't really dictate what it is. So let's just say that they will ask you to go to the memory and recall everything. They want you to know what you smell, what did you utilize every single sense you can possibly utilize. Then they'll say, where is Jesus? And you may see him in a butterfly.
Like when you say see him, you mean see an image that...
How do I even explain?
Like you saw a black man in a butterfly.
No, that's so funny.
As an example, like
no.
if the field, if your memory was like a field of birds and animals and they were like, okay, where's Jesus? Would you have seen a person at that point?
I did.
Okay.
But that's not everybody's experience.
Okay, that's what I was, okay.
That's why it's a little complicated. And I'm trying to remember, because I didn't do this in a while, but generally the people that I spoke to, I never spoke to someone who did not see a person. But I heard of people who did not see people. Okay. And we were instructed, if they don't see a person, do not correct them. Because you don't know how that is connected to anything where you're about to go. So they're like, they may see God like in a book. And then maybe later on when they're doing the traumatic work, they're like, I remember this book that I read that it was my mom's journal. And you know what I mean? It's the connections are beyond what we can understand. So that's...
Well, what is it they say? We're only using 1% of our brain.
Dude.
And there's a whole spiritual world out there that we don't even
tap into.
I mean, even just our own senses. Like there's so much more to what we,
because we have more than 5 senses too. I mean, I don't know all of them, but we got more than 5.
Yeah, I mean, and it gets more into like that intuitive, and there's a lot of things that we just don't have access to.
Right.
I mean, it's there, but it sounds like this is kind of tapping into like, utilizing different parts.
I think that's the reason why I appreciated it so much. I know that in America, it feels like we're not really tapped into that spiritual side as much as I believe, should be. It's very easy to get distracted with commercialism. It's very easy to get distracted with just, even when you think about social media, it's almost like we're deadening those senses sometimes. And so this was a wonderful exercise to use my imagination for the kingdom, to use my imagination to connect with my creator. It was like, I just, and many times I was like, okay, is this okay? Like, Jesus didn't look like this. Like, I don't think Jesus just had like locks. I don't know, like listen.
Hair lamb's wool, you know.
You wait a minute now. See,
wait, hold on.
Let's not even go.
Listen, we might listen.
We're not gonna go there, right?
We're not gonna go there. We're not gonna go there.
I'm just saying that's scriptural. We're not making it up.
It is.
But at the same time, like I said, even in scripture, they talk about many ways Christ showed himself, even post-ascension, you know what I mean?
Okay.
It was, sometimes it's an angel, and don't get me started, I'm not a theologian, but I do even recall him speaking to, after he had risen from the dead, he had spoken to some people who didn't even recognize him. Like, I don't know if his glory was so profound, or if he just looked different. It just didn't look like him. And so, all that to say, that's all of that Imago Dei, right? Looking at Christ, or looking at the image of God in someone. And then also just literally looking at Christ in my life, it just helped me in my loneliness and helped me in my intimacy with God.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Look, I've been talking, what about you though?
Well, you know, when I think about like intimacy with God, so I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah, girl, you are. You got so many businesses.
I'm an entrepreneur. I do like.
Do we need to do a plug for something? What are you plugging today? Which one we plugging today? Not yet?
mean, well, we'll see. But I mean, basically, I'm a creative. And because I'm a creative, I tend to have my hands in a lot of things.
Yeah.
And for the entrepreneurs out there, you know, it's a journey.
Man.
It's not for the weak. I mean, when you venture out to do something and, you know, you are it and you have to make it work and you have to make it come alive, it's very challenging. Yeah. And so for me, I find myself most intimate with God in that space. So for example, like when I'm planning where I want to go. For example, like I'm an inventor.
Yes.
I have products that I've invented.
Right.
And so a particular product that I invented, I may think about, okay, what do I want to accomplish with this? And how do I get there? However, the way that I practice this is I rewind and I practice letting go of the control of how.
Oh, you gotta teach me that part.
It's something that I was forced to learn because I would accidentally let go. I would work so hard on something and I'm like, oh, I'm getting nowhere. I'm working. And then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take a break and boom, it comes through.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, there's something to this letting go. And it's like, I feel like God is saying, look, take guided steps, you know, take action, but make sure that you're being guided in that way. Otherwise, you're going to be on your path. You know how they say, like, tell God your plans and he'll have a good laugh?
Oh, girl.
Because we don't know how to get there.
No.
You know, I don't really know how to get from A to Z. So I'm constantly practicing that and it's challenging. It's like, okay, this is where I want to get. I need to take a break and trust.
I love that.
I need moments of silence where I feel uncomfortable. I don't know what's next. I don't know how I'm going to get to that next stage. And I have to sit in that, you know, and you have to like say, okay, this is where I have to rely and lift control and say, okay, God, I don't know. This is what I need for this next step. I don't know how I'm going to get it. And I've exhausted all of my efforts. I'm going to relax for a minute. And when I tell you, it's scary how it comes through when I let go. And so, yeah. So that's like an example.
So good.
Yeah.
I love that because, pardon me, it reminds me how God wants to be in partnership with us. It's like,
oh yeah.
First of all, the ultimate creator is going to get excited. He put that desire in you, right? And so the desire is in you to draw you closer to him. So it's like, okay, so how are you going to do this without me? This is really my plan.
And it's like, well, you can, go ahead.
Right.
But when you want me to take the wheel, give it to me. And then I'll show you what I do.
How is it that we continue to fall in those traps, though? That's what I find fascinating.
I think it's a societal conditioning That's what I think. I think that we're not really taught to, we're taught, you make it happen. You work, and you make it happen. And while there is a balance there, because faith without works is dead, right?
Get me started. Yes.
But there's a balance.
Right.
There's a balance there to taking guided action and steps.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to remember, like, if you want to have the wheel the whole time,
yeah,
you're going to be responsible for where you go.
Right.
But there's going to be a point to where you get to the end of the road and you can't go any further. And it's like, okay, how about you take this now? And then there's a way that your brain couldn't have even thought of that got you to that next step.
And that's the best part.
It is.
When you realize that wasn't me.
Oh yeah, listen.
That wasn't me. I didn't think about that. You got an example?
I mean, I feel like that is when I know.
Yeah.
That's when I know something's going to work out.
Yeah.
I do have an example.
Okay.
So, one of the second products that I invented, I wanted to get it on QVC, right? And so the first product, I also wanted to get that on QVC, and I tried to. I started researching sales reps. I was reaching out to them. I was getting nothing. So by the time I got to my second product and I had experienced what letting go does, I said, okay, I want to get on QVC, but this time I'm going to let God do it.
Oh, you learned.
I did. Okay. And I was like, I'm not calling anybody. I'm not looking for anybody. I'm not doing any of that.
Now that I commend. Because I would have been, well, maybe I'll just see this person and then see what happens.
Exactly. It's very hard to do that. But
because you're trying to figure out, okay, faith without works, but how much am I supposed to work? I got to work.
Exactly. But you have to, I feel like if you don't feel uncomfortable, you probably...
Oh, you're saying live in the tension.
Live in the tension. And then I let it go, though. I said, you know what? I'm not going to think about that part because I have other things to do with the business.
Right.
So I just continued on. And I found a trade show that I wanted to go through. It had nothing to do with anything QVC. But I was like, last minute, they gave me an opportunity. They were like, oh, we have some openings. I'm like, okay, bet. I'm going to go to the trade show. Yes.
Okay.
A week before the trade show, I got an email and they said, oh, QVC is going to be here and you guys will have an opportunity to pitch to them if you want to. When I got that email, I said, this is it, because I had nothing to do with this. I wasn't even going to this for that.
It was gifted to you.
Yes. I knew it. I knew it because I didn't do anything. I was like, I had nothing to do with this. So I know I'm going to get on there now. So I go to the trade show. I pitch to the sales reps. They love it. And then I move on to pitch to the buyers. She loved it. And I got my product on QVC.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But it was because I knew. And my experience has been that when I'm out here really getting tired and anxious and making too much effort, it's like,
be still and know that I am God.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I used to ask my parents, what does that mean? Because, in my church, we had songs about be still. And I'd be like, what does this mean? Yeah. What does it mean to be still?
Don't move.
Right, don't move.
Sit tight. I just learned what that meant last year because I was going through, actually, was that the pandemic? I forgot why I went through that phrase or that, I was just meditating on that day and night. And then I was like, oh, you're saying don't be anxious. Your spirit needs to be still. Your inner man needs to be still. Calm down. That doesn't necessarily, and of course, when your inner man is still and you are still inside, you don't just do busy work for the sake of it. Because there's a knowing, there's a trust, there's a calmness, there's a peace.
Yeah.
That's the be still.
Yeah.
And know that I am God.
Yes.
Then I was like, oh, got it. I can do that. Wow, girl. Okay, well, look. That was good. So we got a guest coming today.
We do.
Oh, this is my girl, Lynneise.
I'm so excited about this one.
I love her so much. And it's funny because she actually did Immanual Prayer too.
Oh.
So we're standing outside of an Oasis church, and I was like, I can't wait for us to talk about, this other myth, that we'll talk about later. And she was like, yeah, she was excited about it. I'm like, yeah, but we're also going to talk about intimacy with God. And, you know, I think I'm going to bring up Immanual Prayer. She's like, oh, yeah, I did that. I'm like, what?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Apparently she had gone through the same thing. So maybe she'll talk about it. Maybe. Yeah. But yeah, she's going to be up here next. So let's get ready for her.
Okay, let's do this.
Okay. I'm like, should I promote this book? People may want to know what book it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So if y'all want to know what book I'm talking about, it's a Practicum, Immanuel, and it's by Patricia A. Velotta. And this is not an ad. I'm not getting any money off of this. However, this changed my life. Even my dad fell in love with this. He's like, wow. I got to order this book. It's a really great book. It's a really great approach to prayer and even therapy. It's pretty awesome. So, a Practicum, Immanuel, and Patricia A. Velotta. So there you go.
That's dope.
We now welcome my girl, Lynneise Joseph.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
You're good?
It's been a busy week.
It has been.
I'm good.
Oh, that's wow. We were at church at Oasis, and it was, oh my gosh. It was so funny. We're outside talking, and I'm like, oh, what are we going to talk about on the day? What are we, you know? And then I said, I think I want to bring up Immanual Prayer. And she was like, I've done that. And I'm like, wait, no, we can't talk about it right now. We have to wait to talk about this on camera, right?
Yes.
So,
well, what's crazy is you were telling me about Immanuel Prayer. I didn't know all those details. I just did it. So I didn't get like a lesson, like this is what you're going to be doing. It was more a friend of mine. She was trained in doing it. And I was like, I want to do it.
So you were a participant. Like you were actually, how many times did you do it?
Twice. It was interesting because in one of the memories when she's like, where do you see God? I was like, in my mom.
And that is, don't make me cry. Because I see God in your mom too.
Now, when you saw it in your mom, was it a specific act that made you feel like, oh, God is here?
Like just her kindness in that moment.
Okay.
The personification of Jesus.
Wow.
Okay.
So that was House of Prayer. What is it called? The House
IHOP?
of... Yeah, International House of Prayer.
Yeah.
I always thought they were talking about the pancake place.
I was just always saying. There's another
IHOP. I'm like, it's time to eat. I need the Lord. But anyway, she at IHOP, I was like really getting into that different type of Christian. Like I feel like that's how our forefathers approached this. You know what I mean? Like the Holy Spirit was really leading them. It wasn't so much like this is what you do and don't do, and so religious in a sense. It was freer. There was not as much fear involved. You don't think so?
Forefathers is in like Abraham and them, because they had a lot of rules.
Well, I'm talking about not the Jewish forefathers. I'm talking about like A.W. Tozer or maybe he was rules, but you know like the just the old the ones who were writing you know like the letters we find back in the day. I don't know their names. I'm not a theologian, but I feel like they said things that made me like, wow, I never thought of it that way. Like I'll read some writings.
No, I hear what you're saying. I don't know if it's necessarily that they didn't have rules and they're freer. They just didn't have a lot of things to distract them.
They didn't have Instagram?
No.
You're probably right.
I feel like that's why a lot of third world countries, that's why to me a lot of third world countries, like anytime I hear a pastor with an accent, I'm like, oh, this is about to be good. Because they don't have things to distract them. Like I feel like their connection with God is just on a whole different level. My opinion.
No, I actually agree with that. I mean, I feel like even sports is a distraction. Maybe because I'm not into sports. But if I was, maybe I wouldn't think that.
So to challenge that, do you feel like the pre-technology days, like before the internet, when you were younger, well, maybe because you were a kid, but do you feel like you had a closer relationship with God prior to social media?
You know what? That's a good question. I would say I had a stronger sense of community. Like when I was growing up in church, I was at church all the time. I'm talking Monday night prayer meeting, Wednesday night Bible class. If we had a concert, the Golden Voices of Youth, it was Tuesdays and Thursdays were choir rehearsal, Friday Young People's Meeting, Saturday mornings we had usher rehearsal, Sunday
rehearsal.
Ushers, we had to rehearse our signs. We had to rehearse two people. The junior usher
every week.
It wasn't every week.
What day were you not in church?
Probably Saturdays we had choir rehearsals. We had a concert. What day was I not in church? Sometimes I had homework on Monday night, so I couldn't go to prayer. I was at church all the time.
Wow, I thought I was in church a lot as a kid. It was Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday.
That's a lot.
Yeah, Sunday was.
That's a lot.
Sunday school, morning service, afternoon service.
It wasn't no two services. It was like 9 to 4.
You were in church all day on Sunday at our church, all day. From 7 a.m. if you went to Sunday school till midnight.
Till midnight.
Wait a minute.
Oh yeah,
you got me beat.
Look,
if you put the hours, no, ma'am. If you put the hours together, you got
at 7
me beat.
p.m. We would get out at midnight, past midnight sometimes, and have to go to school on Monday.
But what's it like? All from 7 a.m. to 12 a.m. There's actually things happening. There's no break for like lunch.
Oh no, it's a full service.
They gotta feed you, Jennifer. Stop playing. They had dinner.
Oh,
someone had 2 fish.
They didn't believe in
we always had a fish fry.
We didn't eat in our church. Only communion. And we didn't have the church wasn't big enough to have like a reception hall. Mm. So you eat when you leave.
No.
She forgot. You forgot.
Oh, listen.
You telling me they had you at church from 7 a.m. to 12 midnight and
no. 7 p.m. So at 7 a.m.
I'm saying, girl.
Okay, no. So morning service started at 10. Okay. And that would go until 2 or 3. And then you break. Go get some food, come back.
You go get the food and come back.
Yeah. And then you come back at 7 p.m. for night service.
What? That sounds a little similar, but that's like revival week.
Yeah, but that was every Sunday.
Ooh, child.
And sometimes there was afternoon service at like a visiting church.
What you not gonna do is have me know. See? But didn't you feel like a stronger sense of community? Did you feel that way, Lynneise? Like,
for sure. But I feel it now. I don't.
Yeah.
For me, there's no real difference with community. I feel now I appreciate it more than when I was younger. But
yeah,
I think for me it's the same.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to talk about intimacy with God and experiences we've had in terms of like just dealing with. So the episode before this talks about the myth of loneliness, how it's often attributed to single people. Mm-hmm. When I think now our culture is a little more aware, emotionally aware, psychologically aware that loneliness extends to everybody beyond just singlehood. Mm-hmm. But what I do find interesting is if you are single, you think that you're the only, you blame it on your singleness if you're lonely. Mm-hmm. I feel like that happens. So even though we know that's not the reason why I may feel lonely in this moment, it's like we attribute it to, if I had somebody here, then I would. True. Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yes,
it's really weird.
Interesting,
right? Whereas I feel sorry for married people because it's like, well, what do you blame? You have to blame your spouse when it may not even be your spouse. It may just be you. Where you are in your life, or maybe there's a different kind of connection you're looking for, not within like your spouse. Maybe it's your community, or I don't know. It could be anything. But I just wanted to talk about, experiences we've had where we've either sat in spaces or places in our lives where we're dealing with that, or where we've overcome them. Like, I don't know. Where we felt really intimate with the Lord.
Okay. Well, I can kind of piggyback off of what we were originally talking about because, so we've all felt like, well, I can't say we all have, but I have at times felt forgotten about, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, left out.
In general, by God, by
God. Mm-hmm. Like when it comes to single. Mm-hmm. However, this is my sharing experience. So, like whenever I have moments, and there are lots of them, where I feel like I'm being guided, like literally being guided. It could be for my safety. Mm-hmm. It could be like towards something I'm supposed to do, away from something I'm not supposed to do. Those moments remind me that I'm not forgotten about. Because, it's just a reminder that God is still here working with you. And so your path is just your path. So it's not necessarily something that would specifically be, this is a singles experience. Right. It could be that I was going to go down this street and something told me to go down this one. And had I not, a tree fell at the same time I was going to go down that street, something like that. And I'm like, okay, I am being guided. Like, I'm not forgotten about. And, so those are the moments that literally make me go, anytime I'm like, I'm being forgotten about, I'm like, no, there's a reason and a season, and my path is just my path.
I really like that, because sometimes, for me at least, the biggest issue is, do you see me? Am I not being seen, period? Or do you hear me? So when you have little reminders like that, you're like, oh, you know what's going on. You're fully aware of what's going on. You're fully aware of how I'm feeling. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it is interesting.
I don't know if I've ever felt that way.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think I've felt that way from God. Like, I've maybe felt that way after, for example, my family, they were in town because of a commercial. So quite a few of them were in town. I have a big family.
Right.
And my parents stayed with me, my sister stayed with me, and then my sister and her husband and my nephew, they stayed elsewhere. But after that week of them being there and they left, I remember taking them to the airport and just sitting in my car, crying. I didn't want to get out because I'm like, my place is going to be so empty. I don't want to be by myself like that when for this week I've had my family in my place.
Yeah.
But that was the only time that I felt like, I'm by myself.
Yeah.
Because my family's not really here, not that many of them at the same time, maybe one or two switching it out. But that was the first time I was like, I don't want to go back in there.
Oh my gosh.
but not by God.
Right. Just life in general. The way it's said.
Yeah.
Were you going to say something?
I was going to say, oddly, I never feel like I'm by myself.
Yeah.
So when I say forgotten about, I mean looking at friends and family and looking at that supposed to be, at a certain place by a certain age. And it's I don't have this. What happened? You know what I mean? Versus literally feeling alone. I never feel alone, which is odd.
I felt that way during the pandemic. It was bad.
I could see that.
I had just moved. I didn't have a TV. I did not have a TV.
Oh yeah.
I did not have a TV.
So
I did not have a couch.
You didn't have a couch?
I didn't have a couch.
Okay.
Because I had moved out of...
That's solitary confinement, girl.
That's what it felt like. I was but thank God I had a wall of windows, and I was just looking out, my hands on the wall, anybody.
And nobody's out. That's the problem.
It was a couple of cars out. And I'm like, it's a person. He ain't got no mask on. Where's his mask? You know what I mean? Just tripping. But it was bad. It was so bad. My friend was like, you need to get some sun. And you need to breathe. I'm like, I can't go out there. Get some sun. So, but yeah, I felt so alone. I wanted my mom and dad. And my mom and dad are in the house together. My sister and her husband and their child in the house together. And here I am by myself. My brother and his wife is in the house together. And I'm like, I'm by myself. I'm by myself. I have no one here. Then I thought, if I go to the grocery store and I catch this thing and I just succumb, who's going to know? Who is going? I am literally. So it was an issue for a while, but how I felt connected, creativity. The moment I started creating, I felt it was insane how connected I felt.
Wow.
I felt.
What were you creating?
My webisode. Writing.
Wow.
That's where that skit came from, me talking to my plant. Because it was just me. I was just like, you can't die on me. You can't die on me. Not today.
That was Sarah Wilson?
Yeah, no, that was my Wilson.
So
I called
that
him
was
porn.
real. You weren't acting.
No, that was a documentary. I said, wait a minute. I'm gonna just share this with the world. But yeah, I felt so connected with God, and so that's when I feel the most connected. Through creativity, and then of course prayer and worship. But sometimes even that can be a little rough. But generally, like that's prayer, worship, and creativity for me. So let's play a little game.
Okay.
Hot takes.
Oh.
I just wanted to because we're talking about intimacy with God and we're talking about like connection and all that. And if I'm going to like focus on single women for this conversation, which it doesn't have to be, but just for the sake of this, because I just want to talk about this. Let's talk about this popular phrase. Well, first of all, it was popular back in the day. I don't know if people are still saying this. I really doubt it because Instagram and Twitter, they will bully you. So you can't. But there are people who probably feel this way or think this, and they just keep it to themselves, tucked away. Jesus is my husband. Why did I say it like that? Jesus is my dad.
Let me switch my ring.
Okay. I was married, y'all.
Oh my God, who's your man? JC.
JC.
He was just here. Y'all didn't see him. Girl. I honestly want to know your thoughts on this because I literally have so many thoughts on this. I have so many.
And I have some thoughts too. So, like a few years ago, it was like literally like a million years ago when I was fairly new to LA. I was here for like a year, maybe less. And God spoke to me and he said, for 6 months, I don't want you dating or anything. I want on weekends, like we're gonna hang out. I was like, well, I'm not dating anyone. There's been no one around. So sure, let's do this.
I mean, I'm free.
I'm free, why not? And then like maybe a month later when I went to Florida to visit my family, I met someone. And I was like, so God, remember that thing that you wanted me to do? Like, can we not? Because what are the odds? Like, this was not, like, I've never.
That was the devil. That was the devil.
Whoa.
He said, I got some fruit right now.
See, I would have been like, oh, I misinterpreted. That wasn't what.
That's what you would have said? I'd have been like, Lord, you tried to clear my schedule for him. I would have told him to say,
we done early.
That's how I see it. He cleared it for him.
No, I was struggling because I've never met anyone that I was interested in and they were interested in me. It was like, it just...
She said, either I want you and you don't want me, or you want me and I'm like, no, oh man, that's tough.
Yeah.
So you're like, there's a reciprocity here.
Yeah.
And you think I was saying no.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
Lynneise.
Did you like just kind of get the number and save it for later, or you just?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, it's the whole thing. So let me see how I can make this shorter. So God and I, before I met this guy, that's something God was telling me to do, and I was like, I never committed, but I was like, I knew I had to because it's God. And then I met this guy. I was like, wait, God, can we
reconvene this?
Yeah, like why now? And I remember having a conversation with this guy, letting him know, hey, this is something that God wants me to do. And this is a church guy. He sang in the choir, wants to be a pastor, and had this conversation.
What he say?
He's like, this makes no sense.
That's about right. What are you talking about, Willis? He said, the Lord told you what?
Right. And so, but that's I knew I had to do it. And yeah, we didn't talk for 6 months. It helped too. I lived in LA. He was in Florida, so that worked. But like I was like, we could still communicate. We could still talk.
We're just not gonna go.
But
further.
he just cut it off.
Oh, he wasn't the one.
Completely. I mean, we after 6 months, we connected, and it was a whole other thing. But my whole point is, for 6 months, every weekend, I would sit there with my journal, and God would, because what God said to me was, He wanted this to be heart surgery. And that time in my life, there were things that had happened to me that I never addressed.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to. It was scary. It was very, like, a lot of deep wounds. And God took that time to make me deal with these things. And it was really great. It also saved me from the other thing that I still got involved with, but it could have been even worse.
Yeah.
You know? But, so that's one thing. And then, during the pandemic, I started, like, I mean, I was not chilling at home.
Oh, you were not quarantining?
I was definitely not quarantining.
Oh.
So I was the one.
I know, I was confused.
You were quarantining. She out here on these streets. That's right, you were in Echo Park praying for the homeless. Yeah. This is right here. She's a renegade.
Wow.
She said, Gavin, I have things to do.
Under my cover, like.
Right. Gavin knew something I will not say at this house. He was out partying. I'm going to pray for the homeless. Girl.
That's hilarious.
And this, to other people, might sound like really crazy, but, you know, I was in this situation that was kind of difficult, and I took a break from that, and I got closer to God even more than I was, and I wanted to, it sounds crazy, oh my gosh, but, you know, I'm in a safe place.
You're in a totally safe space.
Very.
So, anyway, I decided...
Oh my God. Now you're making me nervous. It ain't going to be that bad. Or is it? What? Oh my God. Okay. You decided.
We're safe.
We're bracing ourselves. I'm like, you decided
to literally, not literally, but like have this ceremony. Like, God, I'm claiming you as like the one for me. And I went to the beach in a white dress.
Why y'all making me laugh?
I wasn't ready. I'm not laughing. Girl, hey.
This sounds like a precious moment.
This is going to be filmed. You went... I need this story. You went on the beach by yourself.
By myself.
With a white dress.
So you had a wedding.
I did.
So Jesus really...
Girl, you were married? Wait.
Jesus, find out. She was married to Jesus, y'all. I can't believe it. Wow.
I never know what to expect with you. We've never had this conversation. No wonder. I told her at church, I said, girl, we talking about Jesus, my husband. She said, well, I said, what? What's going on? You're married to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And, you know, for me, that was more of showing, because I want to be married to a human.
A man. Man. Okay.
But I think for me, what I've done in the past is I have placed so much hope in like who this person is going to be, and just from seeing different friends of mine and family members, like, God, no matter if you're married, God has to be the number one.
Yeah.
And that for me was saying, I understand that no matter what, you're the number one being in my life. And why I decided to do it that way, I don't know. I mean, you know, no one was at the beach really around that time, so.
No one was at that beach.
Communion at the beach. And I did.
Okay, so I guess because you're my friend, I'm here for it. If he was somebody else, I don't know what I'd be doing. I'd be like, wait a minute. But I appreciate the symbolism. I appreciate where you officially put God in your life. And what if we go back to the other story, I appreciate your obedience, because that is tough, when you, and really for anything in life, when you feel like, okay, I have this goal, I'm on this mission, that's when all the distractions come. And you have to have the fortitude, the mindset to say, no, this is the path that I'm on. I will not get distracted. And so kudos to you for that one. And with this, I mean, that's creative. That's creative. I guess. What do you? Jennifer speechless.
Listen.
Jennifer speechless.
Jesus is married.
Jesus got a whole lot of wives, right?
Listen.
A whole lot of
wives. No, like honestly, I get it from a spiritual perspective.
Yeah, I do too.
Because when you talk about like protector, provider, comforter.
Yes.
You should be getting those things outside of people.
Yes.
Because we're human.
Right.
And no one person is going to be perfect.
No.
People are going to upset you. They're going to disappoint you. They're going to leave voluntarily or involuntarily. So it is good to have those things outside of humans.
Right.
But then, so here's my thing with the phrase. Husband, you're leaving out a very big portion of husband.
I'm like,
Mary.
Girl, let me tell you something. Mary, you know what? You can tell men be speaking on this, because Mary is like, you mean to tell me I'm gonna have a baby and I ain't even get nothing out of this?
Right.
Ain't no right. But I know I put it in your head. I gotta put something out. It's like, oh, okay. But yes, she got pregnant.
But no, I hear what you're saying. That is a huge part of marriage.
Because look, I understand those three: provider, protector, comforter. Now, when you get into husband in the traditional sense that we talk about spouses, and even friends, if you want to be, if I'm gonna be a little controversial,
go ahead.
When you think about friendship, you're thinking about an interaction. You conversate with a friend, you play games with a friend, you go places with a friend. It's something that you can experience the world and worldly things, fleshly things with. So friend and husband, it's like, I get the symbolism, but then it just kind of feels more like,
hold on. Oh, I see Jesus as my friend.
Definitely friend.
Yeah. Like I'm talking about, like, I may be like an old time mother, grandmother. Talk, Jesus, you see that, Lord? I will talk to the Lord.
Yeah, but I'm talking about, okay, so would you play like a game?
I don't like you. Okay? And I think you were really.
I need you to.
Have I ever played a game with the Lord? I'm going to have to give you a strong no. But let me think. But I've had joyful moments.
But there are different types of friends. So I'll give you friend, because you don't do everything with every friend.
Right. So, I mean, friendship, I've gotten revelations. Like, I've learned things.
That's true.
I have gone on adventures. I have not felt alone going out on my own doing stuff. Like, feeling very confident, literally feeling like somebody's with me. Yes. I would imagine Christ is in the car next to me. Like, especially after Immanual Prayer, I be seeing Jesus everywhere now. Yeah. I'm like, there you go. No lie. Yeah. So, like, I don't feel, but for me, it's definitely sexually. I'm like, that's the Jesus is my husband part. I'm like, I can't fully grasp that. I'm like, creator, maker, father, all these things. Okay, yes, I got that. Husband. But I will say, there are scriptures that talk about Jesus being our husband. Of course, it's the church, right? The entire body of Christ. It's not like
right, because that's symbolism.
All of us right.
The body of Christ, well, like the bride.
Exactly, it is.
Yeah.
I'm like, is it? It is.
I mean, it has to. It's different than actual like earthly marriage.
Right. It's a spirit, but I don't know if we really get into what this is. I'm like, earthly marriage is the cheap version of what it actually is. So that's like, to me, that's more of the essence of what it is, the spiritual aspect of it. And then we get like a little bonus, you know, when we bang, bang, bang. But like,
because I've heard that the word worship, like when you really, really get down
is to know.
Yes, like to know intimately.
Okay.
In a way that no one knows you like God. And so as you worship, that's why when God like plants his thoughts, his ideas, like planting a seed, same with like, you know, coming together with a man, them planting their sperm. God is planting his wills, his desires in you. And then that births your purpose and all this stuff like that. That's what I was talking about, that intimate knowing.
Okay.
So when I was at the beach.
We went back to the wedding.
Let's talk about the reception. What y'all have? What kind of cake you have? You brought a cupcake out there?
Was there a reception?
No,
she had communion. They had crackers. That was a reception.
That could have been a reception.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, this has been fun. This has been fun.
It has.
It has.
Very interesting.
It's very interesting. We know so much more about each other now. This is insane. I'm like, have I ever had a marriage ceremony? You know what I did do though? I didn't have a marriage ceremony, but I was like, you know, I talked about this in the first episode where I was just like crying out to God, like, why don't I have a man? If I had a man, I would have, you know, a house or not a house because but like I would have more things, you know what I mean? Like I would be more financially stable. I would have my kids, you know, and you know, I was like, really, you know, checking me on that. And I realized, a lot of these areas where I'm expecting a man to fulfill or to fill me up in, God is actually more than capable of doing that. Like, and so much better. So to some degree, I wouldn't say he was my man though, but I was like, man, I feel full now. I don't feel like I'm lacking anything at this point because all the things that I was expecting for a husband to do, you've shown me that you've not only done it, but that you can do more. So then what you really crying about? And I could be like, sex. No.
But wait, just to be clear, I've never said like Jesus was my husband. It was more the commitment that I was making. Like, I understand that
Lynneise
you are
like,
the only
what you not
one.
Gonna do?
Let me be clear.
I said Jesus was my man. She said, well, I didn't say anything. I am out here on these streets looking for anybody who was available.
555.
555. It's so funny. Thank you, ladies, for coming.